Okay. Welcome, everyone, to this week's goRIA Livestream, fueled by investment news. I'm Chuck Vela, and we have with us today a real special guest, Diana Cabrices. And, Diana, you know what? Is your camera on? Let's see here. We might be having some technical difficulties. Bear with us for just a moment. And while hopefully Diana's working on that, I'm going to tee up what we're going to talk about today. So this is going to be kind of the first in a bit of a new type of series. There she is. Yes.
Hello.
Hello. And it's going to be heard on the street, right? So what we do with this weekly live stream generally is kind of focus on what is currently up and live on www.goRI.com. What we're going to do, though, like every 4 to 6 weeks, is we're going to have an industry thought leader, and I can't think of anyone better than Diana. And we're going to talk about what should we talk about, perhaps, and do a deeper dive on. Before we get into this, I do want to thank our sponsor, LPL Financial. As I like to say, if you like them as an independent broker-dealer, you will love them as an RIA custodian. Excellent value proposition. Okay, having said all that, Diana, first of all, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking some time here. I know you have a crazy busy schedule.
Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. This is great. I'm a big fan of what you're doing here with goRIA. I think more breakaway advisors need more resources and guidance, so I'm happy to be here.
All right, and we are super happy to have you. So, again, as I mentioned in sort of the tee up, what we're looking to do with today's 10 or so minutes that we have for these live streams is, number one, talk about what is really top of mind for you, and if you would be kind enough maybe to share a few ideas, and then what I think we'll do is, with in cooperation with you, is do a poll and let the masses speak. What do they want to hear you and I do a deep dive on in a soon to be upcoming podcast? So, having said all that, take it away. What's top of mind for you, and what should be top of mind for some breakaway advisors right now?
Yeah, so this week I've actually been diving into some new technology, technology that I've not heard before, and just understanding where it plays in the space, and then technology I have heard of, and just getting a refresh on what's available to advisors, independent advisors in the space. And one category particularly, I kind of had an aha moment the other day. I was looking at the overall fintech map, and I was like, wow, this category has gone from not existing to now existing with over 10 players within, and that is sales enablement. So we
Sales
often,
enablement. Okay.
yeah, and when you think about the bigger category there, right? You think about business development, but we often think about marketing tools for advisors, especially when you're breaking away, right? You need to know, how do I really insert myself into this market? What's the best go to market? What tools and technologies and content do I need? But we often then forget about, all right, well, when you get the lead in the door, what is the best way to really engage this person, build trust with them, accelerate that trust process, and then close them as a client? And that is where this amazing category of sales enablement has been born. And again, it's gone from not existing a couple years ago on the map to now having over 10 players in the space. So, Chuck, I'd love to share a little bit about what I have learned and some of those aha moments that I think, if you're a breakaway advisor, if you're an advisor in general, thinking about the way that you approach the discovery process with your clients. So the way that you go from discussion to now proposal to then hopefully acquiring that client. Love to share some things there.
Yeah, please do. I got to tell you, sales enablement, that's a new term for me, but I get what you're saying, but go into some more detail if you would.
Yeah, and just another note on that term. The first time I ever heard that term was actually not in the lens of technology.
Hmm.
It was more in the lens of just the overall B2B SaaS world. As you know, I've spent a lot of my career working with fintech and wealth tech companies as in the SaaS world. And you start to hear this term, and it was actually designed initially to help sellers who are selling technology be better sellers. So you have your salespeople, but then you have the tools and resources and training that other people give, these enablers to help you do a better job. What we're seeing in our industry now is those tools and resources and learning and engagement and education, that's all coming in the form of a technology, which I think is really, really cool. So thinking about some of the players in the space, what are they really offering? Well, Now what you have versus in the past, right? Maybe in the past, if you got a lead, you would have a discussion with them, ask them some questions, I would hope, and then maybe you have some documentation that you probably use for all of your leads, your prospects, right? To say, here's what we're seeing in the market, or based on your information, let me crunch some numbers and put together a really simple document for you. It's often manual. So if you wanted to update it for a client, that's going to take some time. It's probably not necessarily branded, and it's probably not very tailored to that client. Well, now all of that is becoming digitized. So, for example, I'll just throw one of the tools out there, or two of them. I was looking at Virgil and I was looking at Elements, and both of them are very similar in that they sort of take the prospect through more of an EQ journey versus an IQ journey, right? So instead of
Mhm.
let's look at your numbers, your savings, your assets, it's also, well, let's talk about your values and your goals and your behaviors, right? What are those dreams that you have? And then finding that happy intersection. So you can take a document like a brokerage document, you can upload it into a system, and then you can also go through this system, this technology with your prospect, answering these different questions, identifying these different values, and then it's going to spit out, again, using technology, its best recommendations, right? So we can
Hmm.
see side by side comparison, juxtaposed to what you have today. If you were to work with me, here's all the strategies I would implement, and here's how your portfolio would look today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now. So, and I don't know, Chuck, in my opinion, there's a few different things going on right there, right? Time saving, number one, because your technology is handling all of that for you. You don't have to sit down and manually crunch a lot of information, crunch numbers, but also again, going back to the trust factor, right? Like, I have an advisor who is also using amazing technology. This is a beautiful interface that I get to use alongside this person. Immediately, I'm thinking this is a forward thinking advisor who is investing in the future of the business, of the craft. And now I have something that is totally tailored to me. Like, it's almost a no brainer for that person at that point to say, this is exactly my plan. It's like getting to a plan before you actually get to the plan, which we know takes a lot of time and resources, and it's a process. But this is a quick way to show someone you have tailored advice. You use the best, most forward thinking technology. You're on brand. They can trust you. And here it is, all wrapped up in a bow, and you're not even a client yet. I don't think it gets any better. I don't know if you have any input on that.
I do actually. So that's really interesting, and this is actually top of mind for us at our shop, and a way to more efficiently engage with prospects. But here's the lens that we look at it. The way we look at it. What we're looking for is a solution for what we call the KOCs, which are kids of clients,
Mm-hmm.
and also 401k participants, right? So think in terms of these prospective clients that are not huge right this moment, or they may not seem huge, but perhaps they are, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
KOCs, not huge yet,
Right.
but at some point they will, because intergenerational wealth transfer, and they'll grow themselves. But also for 401k participants, what you're talking about sounds like it could be a good fit for that. So let's say,
Yes.
for example, we have a 401k, which we do, and it has 600 participants, which there are, and some of them have big balances, some of them have a couple $1,000s, but it's without question, some of those small balance 401k participants, they might have $2,000 in that 401k, but they might have $1 million at their brokerage account.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And boy, we would like to find that out.
Mm-hmm.
What you're talking about there seems like some solutions that we've been looking at to really mine those 401k participants, and also, if you will, mine those KOCs. Can you talk a little bit about through that lens and how advisors could use that?
Yeah. So I'm so glad that you brought this up, because when you look at the overall fintech map, you will see that, yes, there are sales enablement tools in general, but then there are also 401k proposal sales
Hmm.
enablement tools. Exactly what you're saying, right? Finding where these plans could be better, finding where there are participants that might need some shifting in what they're invested in,
Hmm.
et cetera, and then taking that as an opportunity to have a conversation. And actually, one of my really close friends works in this space, and that is exactly what he does. Is he uses technology to, again, go through all of those exact motions you just mentioned, and then he sort of
Mhm.
cherry picks. All right, out of these participants, now we're going to have more conversation. The 401k is just one foot in the door, right? But we know, like you said, they have brokerage accounts, they have other types of accounts that they're going to need support with. So it's a conversation starter in a way. No matter if you're starting on the 401k front or not, that's exactly what these tools allow you to do, is start that conversation, find maybe one area where needs improving, and then you can take that, build that trust with them upon that area, and then expand it to all the other areas of their overall plan. So
Mhm.
I'm glad that you brought that example up. Again, on the map, you'll see some 401k proposal technologies that support exactly that process.
That sounds good. And anything we could do to be more efficient, right? And especially with these smaller balance accounts
Yep.
that are small today, but they don't always have to be small, but we have to be
Yep.
judicious with our time, right?
Yep.
Can I spend a couple of hours a month on a $10,000 Roth IRA? Probably not. And do they need a couple of hours of a CFP's time each month? Probably not. But if
Mhm.
we can get them engaged in almost this do-it-yourself way, which it sounds a
Yep.
little bit like you might be talking about,
Mhm.
then my firm's brand, my name is in front of them, in front of them, in front of them, and waiting for that wealth transfer or for their own wealth to get to the point where they do need a couple of hours of my time each month and are able to pay for that. So I think that's a pretty neat way to do it. So we probably have just a couple few minutes left.
Okay.
If you want to touch upon either a little bit more on to this topic, but what I'd really love is some ideas on other topics that we may not have the time for today, and then we're going to craft that in conjunction with you into a poll to see what everyone wants to hear about, and then we will use that to generate the topic for our next podcast with you.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. So if I'm putting, my breakaway advisor cap on right now, I'm
Mhm.
thinking probably one of the first things I want to know more about is probably going to be, how do I start getting people to pick up the phone, right? How do I get clients?
Mhm.
How do I fill my pipeline of prospects? And as you know, Chuck, with my background, that's where a lot of my expertise really lives, is going to be in the marketing realm. So I would say we should list one of the categories as marketing strategies, whether it's
Okay.
testimonial marketing, whether it's SEO, or some of those really low risk, low cost strategies to get your foot in the door as an advisor. I think that should be one of them.
Mhm.
Maybe also thinking a little bit forward into just technology overall. Maybe we're thinking more essential technology for the business. So, for example, as you start having conversations, you need a CRM to make sure you're tracking everything. What are some best practices around CRM? That's truly the hub of most independent advisors firms. It's going to be that CRM. So I'll throw that out there as
Mhm.
another category. Public speaking, even. How do you give a great presentation to a client? How do you make sure you're talking in a way that's poised, and you make pauses and you ask them questions? But beyond that, not just giving them data, right? 5% of people remember data, 63% of people remember stories. So, really
Mhm.
thinking, how do I, as an advisor, weave in stories at the right time and the right place? I think we could have some strategy around that. And then I'll throw one last one out there because it's really relevant and top of mind for me right now. It's like that next step beyond sales enablement technology is advice engagement technology. So,
Mm.
in the actual craft, in the profession, as you're building out plans, how do you best get your clients involved? Because today we want to co-create with our advisors. We don't just want to give you information, walk away, and then you have everything. Yes, that fits certain crowds and certain audiences, and especially with affluence, but most people want to co-create. They want more of a life coach than just a financial expert. So thinking about some of those areas, how can you improve your engagement when you're actually giving advice? That's another category I'll throw out there.
Okay, so I'm hearing four distinct categories, so that makes
Yep.
for a nice poll right there.
Okay.
And one thing too, I will throw out, a lot of those topics you're talking about are not specifically for the RI space necessarily. However, what I always like to say, as having been in the RI space now for 5 years, one of the best things about this space is you can listen to a podcast, say, "Wow, that's a really cool idea," and 2 weeks later you're implementing that,
Yep.
right? And that's a big differentiating point. So perhaps you're at a wirehouse, you hear a podcast, you hear Diana talk about some really cool concept, then you start the process of talking to your manager about it, and then your manager is talking to her manager about it, and
Mhm.
and then so on and so forth. And then meanwhile, you want to execute on this really cool new piece of technology or marketing concept. Marketing, forget about, right? So FINRA compliance, a lot different than RIA compliance. So what is nice about that is we're able to implement these strategies much more quickly. I'm not sure if I just blacked out there for just a moment, but hopefully not.
Nope.
Okay.
And I think I totally agree with that. Or you have a lot more independence and
Yes,
freedom and flexibility to take all the tools and strategies out there and actually implement them quickly. That's the difference here in this space.
absolutely. So stay tuned. I guess they call this a teaser in the media
Yeah.
business. But we'll be working on putting that poll together with Diana. You'll be receiving it. And look, if you're not following Diana right now, you should, right? It's Diana Cabrices, easy enough to find on LinkedIn. And I'm sure you're on all the social media. I know you're on LinkedIn because that's kind of my cup of tea, but I'm sure you're on Twitter, now X, and everything else. So look for her, link in with her, Twitter, whatever it is, and follow her. And if you do, in the next week or so, you'll see a post coming out with these 4 topics, and we're going to let you choose what you want to hear about in the soon to be released podcast that I'll record with Diana in the coming weeks. So, having said all that, Diana, thank you so much for joining us here today. It was fantastic, as we would expect.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to the next one.
You bet. And on behalf of goRIA, Fueled by Investment News, I'm Chuck Vela, and we will see you next Wednesday for the next live stream at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks a lot for joining us. Take care. Bye bye.